All right. Uh, First off, I would like to thank everybody for signing up to this webinar. We are now going to commence with it. I promise that I will try and make it as informative as possible and surely worth your time. Before we begin, I want to give you all a quick intro about myself. My name is Percy Bengali and I work as a senior consultant with Abara LMS. My specialty lies in problem solving, matching clients' need with Abara's features, marketing, and creating the content that helps spread the news about Abara as a powerful platform. Of lately, I'm also involved with making prospective LMS users and people who rely on traditional training understand the importance of the LMS, especially when it comes to automating their training and L&D functions. I also want to give you all a quick intro into what our company does. At Abara, we have a rich heritage and strong belief in promoting training and development as the key or sometimes as a unique solution to a corporate's problems. Abara LMS is a learning management system designed and built to train a corporate workforce in a way that training and development activities become an organization-wide activity. This rich heritage and culture comes from Abara's parent company, which is eLearning, and we have been developing custom e-learning courses and custom learning technology solution for clients around the world. Abara LMS is also an award-winning system recognized by multiple third-party experts such as Craig Weiss and eLearningindustry.com. So before we move ahead, I wanted to just get an understanding of all the people who are attending this webinar, which is why I have put a small poll in place. The question should be appearing on your screen soon. So I just want you guys to give me an answer, and that will help me understand exactly how my audience is. All right. So from what I can see, we have a pretty mixed crowd here, and this poll that you all have just taken is going to help me better address your needs. Thank you for that. I'm going to try and address as many problems as I can that you all are facing, because I can see that some of you all are using an LMS, some are using but are considering to change it, and I can also see that we have a mixed crowd here who are happy with their LMS. So I'm going to try and cater to all your needs. So as we approach 2019, the training and development space is going to see quite a few changes, and these changes can be leveraged by one and all. I'm going to spend just a minute discussing these changes. However, it won't be in detail. The topics that I'm going to discuss with you now are subject for another webinar. I just want to quickly take you all over what we can expect in 2019. To start off, firstly, micro-learning. Now, in the era of instant gratification and success, enrolling in long courses which extend for days, weeks, or even months will not hold attention anymore. Learners want smaller bite-sized courses. So micro-learning is something that we're going to see in 2019. We then have mobile-first training. Delivering your training on multiple platforms such as Classroom, mobile on demand can help eliminate the time crunch for busy employees. And instead of having complex e-learning courses which can be viewed only on the PC or a laptop, simple, easy to read or view courses on their mobile phones is definitely going to be the in thing for 2019. Moving on, we're also going to see boost in video-based learning. Now, video-based training is one of the most popular modes of training given the popularity of services like Udemy and LinkedIn Learning. We are also going to see interactive video becoming popular here. Then we have game-based learning. Gamification is also becoming huge. Having a progressive reward system built into training using things like badges, points, leaderboards can incentivize the online training experience. So you can see a gradual increase in game-based learning as well. We then have virtual reality-based training. Now, virtual reality is also growing rapidly when it comes to implementing learning content. Though it is still in its early days in India, organizations like Walmart have purchased 19,000 devices to train their staff. So you can say that it's going to become mainstream pretty quickly in the coming years. And finally, we have social learning. Now, social learning is something that we're going to cover in depth in this webinar, but I just thought that I'd bring it up because it is going to be one of those trends and changes that you're going to see in 2019. Social learning, for those who don't know, is the ability to learn using social structures at the workplace through various modes. These modes could be forums, informal chat sessions, sharing sessions, and it's a very important tool for the L&D. It's a topic stimulator, and we are also looking at social learning in the contents of our LMS, which is Abara LMS, and we'll surely get to that soon. Now, before we begin, I wanted to quickly compare India with USA in terms of training and growth rates. All right, PwC India carried out a comparative research, and the results they unveiled is something we as a country need to keep in our minds. Now, in India currently, our corporates are growing at 7.36%, while we are allotting only 1% of our yearly budget towards training. In the US, corporates are growing at 15% on an average, and they are allotting 8 to 10% of their budget to achieve this. I believe we need to look at our training budgets a little more in detail. There is a reason why the biggest economy in the world is focusing on training the way it does, which finally brings us to the topic of our day, and that is, what should your training look like in 2019? In short, this is what your training should look like in 2019. You need to focus on automation tools. You need to focus on training that is measurable, scalable, and cost effective. You must factor in or understand what your learners like and dislike. And you need to set your training goals for 2019 straight. So let us start by understanding some of the best practices and tools that should be a part of your L&D venture for 2019. That is the core of this webinar. It's basically about how or what should your training structure for 2019 look like. Now, the first tool that you should have in your training structure is obviously the learning management system. For those who don't know what an LMS is, the LMS is a learning management system used to automate, structure, and formalize your informal or traditional training activity. There are a lot of advanced best practices that are coming to the L&D space, and you need an LMS platform to be able to leverage or start adopting these practices. So you can almost say that the LMS is the base around which your L&D activities are going to be built. Now, some may also ask, why is traditional training unstructured? Because the LMS is something that is used to structure your training, structure your traditional training. So some might ask, why is traditional training unstructured? To understand this, we need to first look at the limitations of traditional classroom-based training. First off, classroom training is inconsistent, and the quality can vary from trainer to trainer and from batch to batch. So with every different batch, the training given can vary. Depending on the trainer's mood, depending on the learner's mood, training varies from batch to batch. Secondly, training impact also depends on the engagement level of the learners. So it really depends upon what mood the learner has entered the classroom with. They could be tired, they could be frustrated, it could be anything. They have absolute no control over the path pace over here, right? Then thirdly, there is no digital record of the training being created anywhere. Neither is there a digital record of the assessment being carried out. So when a classroom training activity takes place, there is no digital record of the training being carried out. It's not being recorded anywhere. So people cannot access it when they want to, or if they want a refresher. Neither is there a digital record of the assessment being carried out, because usually classroom training is handled, the assessment that takes place in a classroom training is using a paper and pencil concept. So, and finally, training also cannot be accessed again in case the learner wants to jog their memory. So that is pretty much explaining the point before this. So when it comes to training on the LMS, what makes the LMS so advanced? Before we understand that, we need to first understand that not all LMS platforms are advanced. some are outdated, and some are just outright flashy or clunky systems. So you need to first understand what an advanced LMS looks like. When you talk about an advanced LMS platform that is 2019 ready, it basically means an LMS that can operate on mobile devices, operate in an offline mode, have a powerful reporting and assessment functionality. It should present a good UI and UX that is up to date in 2019. It should be light platform with only the needed features. Now, again, you need to remember that the LMS is the base of all your future training endeavors. Also, it is very, very important to make sure that the training you provide your staff in order to get them going is structured, measurable, and can be fine-tuned. Because that is the whole purpose of having something like an LMS in place. It helps you structure your training, it helps you measure your training, and it helps you fine-tune it. I wanted to quickly just bring to your attention what the advantages of an LMS are, and I wanted to do this through an example. So this survey was carried out by a very well-known learning software suite provider, and after asking respondents on what changes they believe the implementation of an LMS brought for them, 40% of the respondents said they noticed increase in revenue. 53% of the respondents said they noted increase in productivity. 26% respondents said they noted reduction in costs, that is overhead costs, and 16% respondents noted decrease in employee turnover. Hence, it goes without saying that the LMS is the foundation that you must build your training initiatives for 2019 on, and it will act as a framework for all other training tools and concepts to be built around. So that is it for the LMS. Now it is really the next tool that you should have in your bag for 2019 that is going to make all the difference. It is so crucial that not only does it power your LMS and your learners, but it saves major costs, it increases training response, and puts all the power of training in your hands. And that is your authoring tools. Now, for those who are currently already using e-learning courses, you would be aware of some of the tools and technologies that are already being used to create e-learning. Some very popular options are your Articulate Storyline, you got Adobe Captivate, and you also have Lectora. Some people also go in and custom develop their e-learning courses using HTML5, and some people get an inbuilt authoring tool with their LMS, which allows them to create their very own e-learning module. And these e-learning modules usually consist of smaller sections or pages, and these pages can comprise of videos, animations, text, and audio. So what is really the benefit of an authoring tool? First off, authoring tools are very powerful systems and they're very easy to use. So basically you're getting a system that is easy to use and are very powerful at the same time. So if you have a team that creates PowerPoint slides in-house, you could have complete power to create your e-learning courses in-house as well. There is no more of outsourcing your e-learning. There is no more paying high prices for modules that are easy to make. Long waiting periods for finished products is over, and divulging your company secrets is something that you don't have to worry about because you're creating your e-learning in-house. Basically, authoring tools also helps rid you of the dependency on getting courses created from external agencies. It gives you complete control, it saves your time, and it saves cost. Now the thing is, there are different levels of e-learning courses. You all have to keep this in mind. Level 1 and 2 e-learning courses really do not need any kind of outsourcing. You can actually create these courses in-house to avoid extra expenditure using an authoring tool. It is only when you come to courses that are level 3 or slightly higher and more complicated that some form of outsourcing may be necessary. So we also have our own authoring tool, and I have created some trial pages and courses that I have created using the Abara authoring tool. And Abara Author is a really easy to use interactive template based authoring tool. And these courses that I have created are SCORM 1.2 and 2004 compliant, which means they work on the Abara LMS and all other LMS platforms that are available on the market today, as mostly all LMS platforms follow the SCORM standards. Now what you're seeing in front of you is a small section of the e-learning course that I've created, and it is called as a flip card template. So basically you can see these three squares. As I move the cursor or as I click on either one of these squares, the card flips to reveal more information. So basically it is an interactive slide that I've created here. Moving on, here is a menu of all the topics for this particular course, and it also shows you the progress for each topic. So you can see there is the topic number 1, 2, 3 and the progress mentioned in percentage wise. So that is again created by me on the Abara authoring tool. Moving on, this is a small pop-up, and here you can put information about your company or disclaimer or copyright. You can also put in the rules about how the course has to be completed. So it's basically again showing you how interactive e-learning courses can be using an authoring tool. It's very easy to make in-house. And finally, I have an assessment page where there are multiple choice questions, and we call this the multiple choice question template that asks your learner a question. Now, the best part, however, is that I can create any kind of module that I want. For example, if I want to create a module which will help me train my sales team, I can easily put together an e-learning course that has all of the following elements as you can see on your screen. That is, I can put in text, I can put in audio, I can put in video, I can put in interactivity, and I can put in assessments as well. So what is interactivity? Now, interactivity is where the course asks the learner to take an action, basically interact with the course. For example, the course may present the learner with a scenario and then offer him a solution. The learner clicks on a selection, and based on the option they selected, a different scenario is played out. So basically, interactivity is how the course interacts with the learner. And you can make them very easily using authoring tools, especially something like the Abara authoring tool. Now, all of these elements can be added into one course, allowing me to create a world-class course without going to an external agency. And authoring tools are definitely something that I recommend you must get your hands on for 2019, because there is no greater power than being able to create your own e-learning course in-house. All right. Moving on to tool number 3 that you should have with you for 2019. It's more of a feature. We call it the learning path. Now, I have always recommended people to go in for the LMS, which has the learning path feature. It is a very straightforward yet highly integral tool or feature to have in 2019. Learning path in simple is a feature that helps HR and L&D guys set a learning path for individual learners within their organizations. In order to understand what the learning path is, you must first understand what an employee life cycle is. This is what an ideal employee life cycle looks like within every organization. You start with the interview, you then go on to get the job, you get trained on what your new job is, you start getting familiarized and you continue working. As you familiarize and continue to work, you start excelling at your work. Once you start excelling, you get promoted, and when you're promoted, you get to manage a team of employees yourself or team members. Eventually, as you prepare to exit or change your role within the organization, you are also needed to find the right replacement for yourself. So, how does the learning path fit along this life cycle? For this, let us take an example of a salesperson. So, when the salesperson first joins, they get onboarded. After the onboarding, they get assessed to check whether the onboarding training initiative that they took was successful or not. Once they get assessed, they get trained on the basics of sales. There is an assessment again which goes in to check whether the basics of sales that was taught to them was successful as a training. They then go on to get trained on the advanced sales techniques. Again, there is an assessment, and finally, when they pass this, they get trained on the sales leadership roles, where there is another assessment before they get promoted to the sales leadership role. Now, the learning path works in a way such as when they finally get promoted to a sales leadership role, a new learning path for them begins. But this time it takes on the learning path of a sales leader. So the whole cycle is repeated, but as a sales leader cycle. Now, one more thing to keep in mind is that The learning path is a feature as such that it is set by the L&D or HR personnel way back in time, right at the moment when the salesperson joins the organization. And all the employee had to do was really follow the LMS learning path with time. And as he completed the assessments, the LMS and the learning path feature took them on to the next level. If you really want to know about what the learning path does, I'll give you all a small brief. Basically, it understands what an employee life cycle is. So the learning path actually understands what an employee life cycle is. And by understanding what an employee life cycle is, first of all, it involves the person on the new process that they are about to undertake. It prepares them on their future responsibilities, their expectations, and the right way of doing things. It trains them in the actual job function itself. It assesses to check if they are totally ready to take on complete responsibility. It supports them with training material throughout their job role. And once they are ready, it takes them on to their next milestone to achieve and excel at. So it is a very important training automation tool that you need to have in 2019. And it is also one of those tools that helps show your learners or show your employees exactly what path to take in order to grow within the organization. So it really sets down their expectations, what is needed from them, what they need to achieve in order to excel and move on. And that is what every employee needs. They need their growth chart set in front of them, and the learning path does exactly this for them. It shows them how to exactly reach the next step within the organization. So moving on, we come to the tool number 4 that you should have in your bag for 2019, and that is social learning. Now, social learning is the process in which learners share knowledge with one another or learn from their peers or more experienced people within their organization. Fast forward to 2019, social learning is very important. Today we have many people who are learning something new constantly, and the LMS allows them to share this information internally, ensuring the other guys do not have to go through a long and intensive research phase to understand the same topic. So if I as an employee have already understood a certain topic, the social learning feature on an LMS allows me to share this with my colleagues, and in effect it helps them understand a topic faster, and it makes sure that they do not have to go through an intensive research phase to find out the information that I already know. So I'm basically sharing information that I know via an LMS with my colleagues, and that is what social learning is all about. Primarily because in today's time, users try to find their answers to their questions on their own, and they would rather not wait for an L&D person to put a formal training process in place to explain a certain topic. So how could social learning work? Because social learning can work in multiple different ways. There are various possibilities. I have put down some of them in front of you. First of all, you could create groups for learners to join, and these groups could be department specific, interest specific, or geography specific. So I can join a group based on my department, and I'd be very certain and sure that whatever being discussed within that group is related to my department and related to my interest. So if I want to know more about my department and how I can excel at it, or how can I improve my job responsibility within it, I can join a group which is related to my own department. Moving on, you can also create topic-based forums. Now here learners can share and discuss their ideas either before or after training. So if I know that there's a proper classroom training that is set for a future date, we can have a forum created right before that training, and here people can actually discuss with them, with each other, about what questions they might want to ask the trainer or what problems they might want solved by the trainer. So you see, it's a form of an informal way of sharing information, but with relation to a specific topic. It is not about going anywhere off the chart. It's about sticking to the topic and the subject, but having an informal discussion. The same thing can be repeated by creating a forum that is a post-training forum. Now at the post-training forum, people can ask each other questions and clarify each other's doubts. They can also share more information if they have about the actual training that was carried out. So it is a really nice way of getting people involved. And learners can also share content approved by the administrators and moderators. So obviously when you give learners the opportunity to share content and share information. It has to be monitored by administrators and moderators to ensure that the topic being discussed is related to the subject at hand and not something else. So it can obviously be moderated as well. L&D guys can also act as subject facilitators in this. So as an L&D, you all can further stimulate the topic by putting in additional information, additional topics to talk about, create more discussions. So that is how good a social learning feature is for 2019. It's actually something that gets you to engage all your learners. And finally, learners can also book personal chat sessions with subject experts where they can clarify their doubts on a one-on-one basis. At Abara, social learning is on our roadmap for 2019. We are currently working extensively to get this developed and delivered. I'm going to show you all a few slides, and this is how our team has visualized it would look for 2019. We are in the process of talking to our existing clients and other HR and L&D heads for inputs on how this could impact the organization's learning culture. I'll just show you all a few slides of how our social learning is going to look. So what you all can see in front of you is a discussion forum. There is a topic on top and people can come onto this forum and just put in their thoughts about it. This is how our discussion forum is going to look for social learning. And what you all can see here is a group chat box where, like I told you, people can come on, share ideas with each other, have discussions either before or after the webinar or before and after the training. It's totally dependent on the learners. Obviously, there are administrators and moderators who are online to make sure that only the subject related to the matter is being discussed. So, what are the benefits of social learning? Now, what are the real benefits of social learning? Now, first of all, it is highly appealing. Like I said, people get to share information, they get to talk to each other, refer text and material, which makes it very appealing for learners. Secondly, it is a way of supporting formal training with an informal manner. So you are basically supporting formal training through the use of forums and chat sessions. Then it has greater impact since collaboration interaction piques learners' interest. So basically, when you allow learners to talk and interact with each other, it is a form of piquing their interest. And it really works well on a social setting like this. Millennials also like social learning. And finally, learning becomes faster. Like I said, if I already know a certain point and I know that I can share it with my colleagues, I'd be more than happy to share it and my colleagues would be more than happy to understand it rather than them having to go through an intense research phase and find the same thing that I already know. And moving on, we come on to our tool number 5 that you should have for 2019, and that is your e-learning courses. Now, e-learning courses have come a long way from being just simple slides that change after 10 seconds. Today's modern e-learning courses are nothing short of a work of art, labor and science. There's a lot of effort that goes into making e-learning courses. The reason why e-learning is so rapidly taking over is because today's generation doesn't like the book, paper and pencil concept. Today's generations like social media, quick videos, animations and interactive user experience. You basically need to understand the benefits of an e-learning course or e-learning courses to really understand why it works. First of all, e-learning courses help you break down complex topics that can be turned into simple interactive learning experience. It simplifies the subject through the use of text, images, audios and video. So a very complex topic can be easily broken down into small sections of text, images, audio and video that helps the learners better understand the subject. Through scenario-based learning and assessment, complex topics and subjects can be taught without having an instructor in place. So where you actually have to replay a scenario and a proper trainer is needed. If you have e-learning, you can eliminate the need for the trainer and just put in a scenario-based learning and assessment, and the same thing that a trainer would do can be done by an e-learning course. Then dense, heavy topics can be condensed into light, interactive courses that keeps the learners engaged. So as long as your dense and heavy topics are kept light and condensed into interactive courses, you're at least keeping your learners engaged. So that is one of the reasons why e-learning courses are really important. And finally, e-learning courses are assets that can be repeatedly used. The shelf life of courses depends on the relevance and duration of the training needs, obviously. But the good part is they can be repeatedly used. Instead of having a trainer come in and repeatedly given the same lecture over and over again, which could vary, a simple e-learning course can be used multiple number of times till the relevance of the course is there or the duration of the training need stays. Moving on, we come down to tool number 6 that you need in your bag for 2019, and that is mobile learning. Now, mobile learning is by far the tool with the most promise on this list. Statistics are saying that the number of smartphone users in India will reach 410 million by 2020. So there is no denying or ignoring how important this device is for training to be accessed on. Why is mobile important? Mobile is important because of its mobility, and 80% of the millennials already believe in the concept of bring your own device to work. So 80% of the millennials want to bring their own devices to work. This essentially means devices like laptops, iPads, mobile phones, and other media devices. Now, given a choice, it would be mobile first. They then choose to bring a tablet or a laptop, and then finally they choose to bring in their own office computer, which would tie them down to their own place. So they do not want to get tied down to their own place. That is the whole concept about mobility in today's days. And what researchers further revealed is that 87% said that their mobile phones never leave their sides. So this basically simply just means one thing, that as 2019 comes in, 20 comes by, and 21, 22 comes by, mobile training is definitely going to be the way, because we are only going to see an increase in the number of mobile phone users. Now, what supports a good mobile training initiative is also the presence of a great mobile first LMS, which is fueled by excellent mobile optimized content. So you have to remember this: if mobile training is what you want to go for, then you also need a great mobile first LMS, and you need to make sure that it is fueled by excellent mobile optimized content. Now, the advantages of doing this are plenty again. First of all, you can access training from your home, or your learners can access training from your home, from their homes. They can access training when traveling, and we strongly recommend that training should be accessed only while availing public transport, or while while traveling through company organized buses and cabs. Training can also be accessed in between free periods of time, and you can also have people learn while at work itself. And if you still want to know why mobile learning, then there are 4 concrete reasons why mobile learning. First of all, today the youth is used to consuming information on the mobile phone. Today we all are used to consuming information on our mobile phones. It has become our source of news. Secondly, it is highly mobile and accessible. Thirdly, data and internet prices in India are low. So we are always connected to the net, and we are connected to our net using our mobile phones. And finally, India is one of the biggest consumers of smartphones, second only to China. So we will, and I'm pretty sure that very soon we will be the biggest consumers of smartphones. So that was tool number 6 that you should have in your bag for 2019. Moving on, we come to tool number 7, and that is blended learning. Now, what is blended learning? Now, blended learning is an approach to training that combines online learning materials and presents opportunities for interacting online with traditional location-based classroom methods. It basically requires the physical presence of both a trainer and a learner, with some elements of learner's control over time, place, path, or pace. Basically, this is where the perfect blend of man and machine takes place, and the outcome of this blend is probably the best form of training any learner can receive. So it is a magnificent blend of machine and man, or man and machine, where the best of both worlds are included to ensure that the training being provided is optimal and to the learner's preference. Now, why blended learning? I'm going to try and explain this with the help of an example. In this case, we're going to take the example of employee onboarding. All right, and the onboarding process is going to be split into 3 precise steps. The combination of these steps is what we call as blended learning. So what are these steps? We first have pre-classroom training, then we'll have in-class training, and finally we have post-classroom training. So let us start with pre-classroom training. Now, in case of onboarding, it is very simple. Pre-classroom training can take place on the LMS, where the basics of the topic can be taught in the form of self-paced courses over the LMS. So the first part, that is the pre-classroom training, is going to take place on a machine, which is the LMS. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring forward the basics of the topic. Here, the learner can learn the basics of the topic or the introduction to the topic or anything that is very simple to understand and can be taught on the LMS immediately for the learners to grasp. Obviously, these courses will be available to learners and they can use it and access it at their own pace and time. It is a very great way of covering introductory topics as well before the actual classroom training activity. So in case of onboarding, company history, founder's vision, mission statement, and so on can be taught to them using the LMS in a pre-classroom training. Then moving on to the in-classroom training itself. Now, once the learner has already gone through the basics and the introductory courses on the LMS, they can come into the classroom ready to tackle the more complex aspects of a subject. Not only are they already briefed on the basics using the LMS, but they are in a much fresher state of mind to accept more complex topics. So you're not going to take away their attention span by starting from the basics. They already know the basics, they learned it at home, they've entered the classroom with a fresh state of mind and they're ready to take on more complex topics. Now you need to keep in mind that the training being carried over here is by a physical trainer. So the first part was done by the LMS, which is the machine. The mid section or the in-classroom training is now being carried out by an actual trainer because these are more complex topics and they need some kind of personalization. So here we can take examples like organization best practices or what exactly is their job role or skill building training and other types of training. So these are actually the core of the training itself, which is carried out by a physical trainer. Now we move on to post-classroom training. Now, once the pre-training and in-classroom training is completed,
we're going to take the example of employee onboarding and how the onboarding process is split into 3 precise steps. The combination of these steps is blended learning. All right. So first we have pre-classroom training, then we have in-class training, and finally we have post-classroom training. So let's start with pre-classroom training. Now, in case of onboarding, how does pre-classroom training take place? It is pretty simple. Pre-classroom training takes place on the LMS where the basics of the topic can be taught in the form of self-paced courses over the LMS. Here the learners can learn the basics of a topic before coming for the in-classroom training session itself. Now, it is a great way of covering the basics or introductory topics before the actual classroom training activity. So for example, company history, founder's vision, mission statement, and so on can be carried out over a pre-classroom training. Now basically this is carried out over the LMS. So the first part of the training where the basics, the introduction to a topic and all the simple subjects can be carried out via the machine or the LMS. Now when the learners actually come in for an in-classroom training, all right, they've already gone through the basics and the introductory courses on the LMS. They first of all come into the classroom ready to tackle more complex aspects and they are already briefed on the basics, which keeps them in a much fresher state of mind to accept more complex topics because the basics has already been covered on the LMS as a pre-classroom training. One thing to remember again over here is that in-classroom training is carried out by a physical trainer. What this basically means is that the more complex topics is given a more personalized touch using a human, and this helps drive the message home in a better way. So for example like organization best practices and what exactly their job roles are and skill building and something like that, in classroom training is the best option for them. It is carried out using a physical trainer. Then moving on, we come down to post classroom training activity. So the first training where the basics were involved was carried out on the LMS. The second part, which is in classroom training, was carried out by a physical trainer. And finally, the post classroom training is carried out on the LMS once again. So how does post classroom training work? Once both the pre and in classroom training is completed, the final part of the training involves additional information or refreshers, and also the most important part of the training, which is carrying out an assessment. And again, all of these are done using the LMS. So you got examples like assessments to get certified, refresher topics, additional information. All of this is carried out in a post-training training, in a post-classroom training. So basically, by mixing these 3 steps that I just mentioned to you is how blended learning is achieved. The first step is where the LMS was involved. The second step is where the physical trainer comes in, and the third step is again back to the LMS. So you've got the LMS or the machine, physical trainer, LMS again. This is a perfect example of blended learning. And it is all about combining the best of e-learning and classroom training, because the central theme is about not wasting valuable classroom resources on basic concepts. And what can be covered using blended learning must be covered using blended learning. So what are the real benefits of blended learning? There are 4 real benefits of blended learning. Firstly, we have efficiency. Now, actual training can be carried out in the classroom, like I told you, but the introduction to these topics and post-training assessments can be carried out via an LMS. So this makes training efficient from both the learners and trainers point of view. Then we have effectivity, which and some people have a problem with study in isolation. So blended learning ensures that problems can be addressed in person with an instructor. So the people who do not like studying in total isolation can be brought into a blended mix where little bit is done in isolation, little bit is done in person, giving them an optimal format of training. Then it is cost effective when it comes to training. So simply relying on trainers hired to travel large distances to impart training is inefficient. Now trainers can teach entire batches using blended learning from remote locations. The biggest advantage here is that training once given can be reaccessed over the LMS. And finally, you have increased communication and collaborative learning. So post training through emails and inbuilt LMS notification features, learners can still communicate with the trainer and continue to discuss the topic and their learning journey. So with this, we come to an end with the tools that you need for 2019. And just to give you a quick brief, you need to have an LMS in place, which is the base for everything. The authoring tools help you fuel your e-learning or your LMS. You need to have a learning path in place which shows your employees about the career trajectory within an organization using learning and development. You need social learning where people can share information and make learning faster. You need to have good e-learning courses because e-learning courses helps keep your learners' attention. You need to make sure that these courses are accessible, so mobile learning is very important. And finally, need to ensure that you get the perfect blend of learning, which is your blended learning. Your traditional and your technology have to be mixed very well. So with this, we come to the second half of our webinar. And before we move on to the second half, I wanted to also tell you all that our counterparts around the world have already got most of these tools in their arsenal and are in fact already moving on to other greater training tools. Some of them are the X API, there is AR VR training, they have gamification, micro learning and micro video training as well. Now India as a country has a long way to go, and our aim should be to come closer to training and L&D best practices from around the world. That should be a common goal for all of us. So we already know that training using technology is important, but why do people prefer technology? Now to understand this, we need to understand what our learners like and dislike. And this brings us to a very important topic, that is, what do modern learners like? Now modern learners obviously like content that is high quality, but they also like well packaged content, information covered in as many dimensions, that is video plus text plus audio. They like information that is packaged into small nuggets. They like information that is always accessible and it should be interactive. Now you will ask, why is this so? The answer to this is very simple. It is because social media has reshaped the way modern learners consume content today. Now they like consuming content in the form of short videos, posts, shareable images and memes. And what does this say about modern learners? Well, it clearly just points towards one thing, that modern learners like consuming content that is packaged well, which is present in micro-learning formats and not long courses that take a long time to complete in one go. So if you're going to break a subject down, break it into small modules that can be completed one by one. Big, long, large training modules are not going to work because they have to start it and finish it in one go, and it just loses them midway through. So for an example, take a dense subject like banking and financial laws, break it up into micro topics, wrap the content in short courses or module format, and the learners will be encouraged to start and finish these modules one by one instead of giving them one long course to finish in one go, or make them sit in a classroom session where it is like a whole day's training and they have to learn the whole thing in one go. So it basically simply means that relying on classroom training and on the job training, because again on the job training requires them to learn from the time they enter to the time they exit, and it's just not going to work. Our modern learners' methods of accepting knowledge has changed, and they like knowledge delivered in the way that social media does. You also need to know what do modern learners dislike. So modern learners dislike dense content that is not interesting. They dislike inaccessibility of content. So if content is not always accessible, they dislike it. They dislike plain text. They dislike the book and paper learning, and they dislike long lectures where the basics could have easily be taught on something like the LMS, and they just come in and sit for the core of the session, which is what I explained to you in the blended learning. So they do not like this. And one thing for sure that you have to keep in mind is that they do not like traditional training. Now, for example, print media is one of those text industries whose customer base is not seeing much increase with the millennials. Newspapers are already on the verge of shutting several print stations and offices. While Gen X used to spend 66 minutes reading, millennials are now spending only 44 minutes, and it's going to go even lower for Gen Y, which is the generation that is going to take over after the millennials. Basically, you can say that the buyers for these traditional form of media are just not there anymore, especially with the latest generation coming in. So with this, we come to how do you and what do you do as a plan for 2019 when it comes to learning and development. We already know what tools we need to use. We already know why we need to use them. And we already know what our modern learners like and dislike. So the next step is, how do you plan your training activities for 2019 and what should it truly look like? It is very simple and straightforward. First, you need to formalize your training. Use an LMS. You need to create your e-learning courses in-house. Use an authoring tool. Thirdly, you need to interest your learners. We call this internal selling. So once the LMS is in place and you have fueled it with e-learning courses, you cannot expect learners to just start using it, which is why you generally need to give them a small push before they understand why training and development is important. And we also call this internal marketing to your internal consumers. Now, L&D must take a page out of marketing to be able to make any training initiative succeed. Now, we will discuss this in depth in the next slide. Moving on, we come to creating a learning journey for them. You need to create a learning journey for your learners, which is using a learning path. Now, use an LMS with learning path so that they can map their journey, learning journey to their career paths within the organization and know how they can reach the next level within their organization. This will keep them more engaged. Then we come to create a social learning environment. Let learners share their content. Then you have blend your learning. You need to blend traditional and digital. And finally, you have to assess your outcomes, because only using your assessments will you really know whether your training is working or not. So promote your training plan internally. It is important because you need to let your employees know why they need to train. Give them a reason to train and develop their skills. Link the possibilities of promotion and increase in job responsibility with good performance and training. Where once you were just promoting people based on presence of work performance, the LMS will allow you to test them on other things as well. And also, when you give people an opportunity to learn and develop themselves for the betterment of the organization, and you tell them what is in it for them, they will be even more inclined towards training and learning. So if you give them a reason for learning and development, they will certainly take it up. Now, how do you determine if your training worked? Some key metrics to determine if your training worked are: increase learner participation, decrease in attrition, increase in productivity, decrease in overhead costs, great employee engagement rates, and good feedback from managers and stakeholders. So when you plan your 2019 activity, and at the end when you want to assess how well it has worked, keep these following parameters in mind. And this is how you're going to test whether your planning and training activity for 2019 has worked. I just want to also tell you all a few things to keep in mind when you all are planning for 2019. Make bold moves. Now, as an organization, you will have to focus on pushing for concrete moves and results. Losing out on making changes at the early half of this year will only slow down your progress and development and speed for the next half of the year. So as L&D teams and HR units, you have to make sure your organization takes part in building a culture of learning and development. Do not follow buzzwords. Now, while putting in place a plan, you have to also make sure not to get pulled in by the buzzwords that float around the internet, which can hype a certain product for more than what it is. Many times your needs are quite straightforward and simple. So simple solutions are the best option for an organization. After all, there is no harm in starting simple and moving up as you diversify your needs and your L&D becomes more complex. Finally, follow the agile concept. Let me just quickly take you through what the agile concept is. Like I mentioned before, start small and build as your needs increase. And that is basically the basis of agile concept. Agile basically is the process of tackling your needs with time. This allows you to make sure that your learning plan is well suited for your current needs and not the needs that you think you will need in the future. When it comes to your LMS as well, don't choose the most complex LMS right off the bat. Choose the one that is modular. Start off with features you require immediately and switch to more complex features as the maturity of your L&D initiative improves. I quickly wanted to show you guys the Abara ecosystem. The Abara ecosystem is a robust environment for L&D initiatives. The Abara LMS is a versatile system. You can either upload e-learning courses created via common authoring tools like Articulate, Lectora, and so on. As long as the content is COM compliant, Abara LMS accepts them. Or you could also upload existing content like Word documents, PowerPoint slides, and other training material to get started immediately. So one thing to also remember is that the Abara authoring tool that I showed you before is also a good way of developing custom e-learning courses in-house that can be used to train your learners. And the Abara LMS accepts content created on the Abara authoring tool as well. Now, the best part about the Abara LMS is that it is accessible on both the PC and laptop setups and also on the mobile devices for increased accessibility. So with this, we have come to the end of the webinar, guys. At Abara, we are always committed to make sure that you all make the best decision possible. Hence, if you all are interested in booking a personal session where we can help solve some of your problems, you all can reach out to us. You can also book an LMS demo. The link should be appearing in your chat box right now. So I'd ask you all to like just copy paste it and save it with you all, or keep it with you all to just use it in case you all need it. Also, do drop us any questions that you may have and we will reach out to you personally with an attempt to address it. And once again, I'd be expecting you guys to like drop in questions, and y'all are free to get in touch with me whenever possible. Thank you all for attending the webinar. I hope it has been of some use to you all. I'm also sending you all our email ID. You all could send your questions to us using this email ID. All right, guys. Thank you for attending and have a great day. You all can reach out to us at contact@abaralms.com. Thank you.